Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Art of Castlevania panel. My name is Ben, and I'll be one of your moderators today. I want to thank the artists for taking their time out of their schedule to be with us today, and to thank you guys for joining us on Twitch. If time allows, we're going to reserve a bit of time at the end for questions, at which point you are welcome to type your questions into the Twitch chat box. This panel is being recorded and will eventually make it to our Patreon and YouTube channel. And with that, I'd like to welcome today's moderator, the author of the Castlevania book, Chris McDonnell.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the panel. I'd like to say it's great to be here today we've got Sam Deats, the director and production designer, Adam Deats, assistant director, editor, and animator, Katie Silva, lead character designer, and Stephen Stark, lead background designer. And I think we should just get right into it. The reason we're here today is to take a look at some of the art of the animated series Castlevania featured in this book right here. It's not going to come through that well. We've got, fortunately, a PDF copy, which I will just give you a quick little tour through. Here or there, but then we're going to get right into each of the individual panelists and their art treasures to share with you. So here we have the cover image of Castlevania, the Art of the Animated Series. To get an idea of what's inside the book, we'll take a quick peek at the table of contents. 3 big chapters, and these chapters feature our heroes, demons and the dams, and this 3rd chapter features the lands that are featured within the book. So a few quick peeks. I'll skip through a few pages here. Our hero, Trevor Belmont, some initial artwork. This book is full of designs, behind the scenes, early sketches, concept art, all types of costume variations. You'll see as the artists get into it a little bit more, they'll discuss some of the reasoning and ideas and research that went into creating this series. There's a wonderful painting here, storyboard examples, and just hundreds, maybe thousands of images throughout this book. All right, so I'm going to just show you a couple more pages, and then I'm going to hand it off to Sam to get started. But right before that, let me just skip down and show you. Beyond the creatures, we get into background designs and all sorts of artwork. All right, so Sam, let me hand it off to you. I'll stop sharing here, and let's get into your stash of artwork.
Hey everyone, I'm Sam Deats, the director of Castlevania. In the art of Castlevania, there's tons and tons of pages of character design, and there's pages of storyboard and background art and all that stuff, just like Chris said. One of the things you'll see a lot of that, especially as Katie, our lead character designer, who took over character design on seasons 3 and beyond. But I wanted to kind of sit down and talk about storyboarding, the storyboard process, and all that fun stuff, because I think that's something that we have a few pages of in the book, and I think that you guys will really enjoy to take a look at. So let me figure out sharing my screen here, and hopefully that's working. I wanted to actually pop open a file from a set of storyboards from season 4. So right here, you can see the original storyboards for the very, very first scene in season 4. And it'll probably not run great over the stream, but I'm trying to just sort of scroll through a bit. And the way that we go through these processes, after we receive the script, we break it down and figure out how the scenes will play out. And oftentimes what I do is actually go panel by panel and scene by scene, just writing notes for myself and scribbling little thumbnails and all that fun stuff. And I'll show a little bit of that here in a minute. I just kind of wanted to scroll through and show a bit of this process. Some of my storyboards start to get a little bit animated, as you can see in this little fight with the skeletons.
A little bit, he says.
A little bit. Maybe a little bit too animated. It's kind of fun because it's like doing a stick figure animation to an extent, which I used to do a lot more when I was a kid. Not so much anymore, but now I have to make the drawings like really clean eventually. And then there's sometimes I drop in layouts like this where it's just like a really tight drawing, and you don't normally do that in storyboards, but I kind of jump between roles a lot, and I like to help out with the layouts and stuff. There's Tam Liu did an amazing job animating this shot. You can see how the original storyboards were. Very, very basic, because I was like, well, this is kind of a pain in the butt. So I think I'm going to pass this to one of our in-house animators to figure out all this nonsense, and they're going to hate me for the tree animation. And but Tam did just an amazing job with it. Oh my God, in this shot right here, which I again just was like, I'm gonna get a very basic rough idea, and then Tam is just gonna do an amazing job with it.
There was a short conversation we had about that shot where she's falling, where maybe we would do more of it in just 3D. And then Tam was like, nah, I'm gonna do it. I'm just gonna animate it.
This was the season of background animation and just doing lots of tree branches and falling through and rocks and debris and all that stuff. And speaking of which, bringing up a bit of this next sequence right here. Excuse Storyboard Pro for a minute as it tries to get its shit together.
So Sam, that's clearly an incredible amount of drawing. And as we talk about in the book, anytime you're in the middle of an action scene, there's going to be many more panels in the boards than, say, just a simple conversation sitting around the table. And like you said, these are virtually animated in a lot of places. You mentioned you have a team animating in-house, but there's also outside studios that contribute animation?
Yeah, exactly. So we have a team of in-house animators. We have freelance animators that we work with as well. And then we work with Tiger Animation, who's our main partner out in Korea that does a significant portion of the animation. But the way that we operate is we sometimes do very broken down boards that kind of key out the motion for a lot of the animation, but then we also pass a significant portion of the animation where we really want to go above and beyond to top tier animators that bring the A game for the big important moments. So as you can see here, this is a portion of Trevor's fight with death, which there's a set of boards inside of the book for. And a lot of this I have sort of the basic idea down for, but you'll notice when you see the final animation that I basically gave Tam Lu a whole lot of freedom for sections of this to just go nuts and bring that Sakuga. And he absolutely did. So I broke this down a little bit less because I knew that it was going to be going into such capable hands.
Yeah, and this is another case too where originally the plan was for all these floors in this shot sequence to be a 3D model, which we did have. But Tam Lu took it upon himself to animate the floor in all the shots. And I didn't want to throw that out after I got it. He asked me, hey, he told me, hey, you can throw out the floor if you want. And I was like, but it looks so cool. And we don't get to see background animation like that. So we decided to keep it.
Yeah, I think that the sticking to the original like hand-drawn background animation was just like really cool for this sequence. So you can see some of how this was all handled.
Right. So anytime the camera's moving through these action shots, the entire frame was drawn, including the background elements, the floor.
And I'll show some of that here in a minute, particularly when you get to these horrible scribbles that I dropped in for some of my storyboards. As we were approaching 0 hour, some of it started to look a little bit like this. But as you'll see in a little bit, I actually animated a lot of these shots. So going through the effort of doing hyper clean storyboards for something I was going to animate myself just wasn't really necessary. But it still gets the idea across. You get an idea of how everything's going to play out, the motion, the drama of it.
Which I mean, like, you know, your boards, especially this last bit with Death getting nuked, they played out exactly on screen as it was in the boards. You know, I mean, you basically just use them as like rough layouts.
Yeah, definitely. And I wanted to show a little bit of hidden away in some of this file. There's actually things like this. Trevor rushes left. This is how I start a sequence. I go through scene by scene trying to imagine what it is, and I write little notes to remind myself what the heck I'm doing. Or I do the nastiest, ugliest scribbles that only make any kind of sense to me to figure out what the feeling and the motion is going to be like. And then I actually go through and figure out, so you can see it in my head, I'm like, I already know that Death's arm is starting to come in view as the camera's coming in, but it's just like this horrible, ugly doodle, but end result is obviously comes through. That's just sort of how I plan things out. It's write little notes for myself and then do very, very quick little scribbles and then build upon it like that.
We talked about in the book how you might get a script page or something that says a battle ensues or something, and then you just kind of have to extrapolate out an entire sequence. Is that a correct memory from the book?
Especially in season 4, and especially this episode 9 only had I think it was something like a 15-page script. Normally you're getting something like 22 to 25 pages, but episode 9 had 4 parts that were basically like these folks fight, this should happen, this person should be hurt, or something like that. And that was like the entire blurb. And so I actually storyboarded most of episode 9, and it was very much a lot of sitting down and trying to conjure up the idea of what we wanted to have happen, what I wanted to see. Funny enough, this fight with death, it wasn't quite this big JRPG boss battle. I think that it was the ring around them wasn't totally wiped out. He wasn't quite this big in the script, all this kind of stuff, and that was just all something that I kind of decided that I wanted to do, is make him just much larger than life, have the entire ring wiped out to where it's just this like very stark battlefield that he's on, and the swirling debris and everything that's going around him. That was all just something that I wanted to see for this final battle, you know? Okay, so hopping ahead, this shot came up earlier. Is a little piece of animation. You can see the key animation for it. And you probably remember those horrible scribbles that I showed you earlier. And that is that first pass, which is the thumb pass, or or actually this is, that was the storyboard. This was an update that I did, planning things out in the worst scribbly way. And then my next step was to switch over to these roughs. This is when I started to actually plan out the motion, break it down with Trevor's proper structure, figuring out all of this debris, and the way that I worked on this scene, I actually handled the roughs for the debris that he runs along first, because I needed to figure out, like, okay, well, where the heck is he actually going to go? So I handled, this here first, and these pieces going by to give him, little Mario platforms to hop on. And then went through and did his, the mannequin of his body. And then for that red and blue that you see there, figured out what the secondary motion is going to be. Then finally went through and made him pretty. Him running along and all that fun stuff. And hand animated all that damn debris that's going around in the background. Usually one at a time. I just went through and I was like, okay, well, this rock needs to go by, and I just did that one rock for the whole run, one after the other. I think this is the shot that took the longest out of the sequence. I handled all those shots towards the end of the fight, but this one took the longest because of all of the debris animation, and I think it ended up being a 3-day shot, which is not cool for my schedule, but it was what it needed to be.
I assume there's lots of layers down beneath where we can't see it, all those different things, right?
Let's see. Here's where the
oh yeah, they're there.
Are, which I didn't actually end up using this wind effects layer, apparently. I don't actually.
It's actually in there, Sam.
Huh?
I thought that you're talking about the backgrounds, those little scribbly wind lines you have.
Yeah,
we did retain that.
Separate, yeah, it's a separate layer. But yeah, I don't actually usually operate with that many layers when I'm animating. I try to keep it my files pretty tight, pretty plain, for my own brain's sake, and also for Adam when he has to composite it.
So where did this scene go next? Just real quick. Was there an assistant animator, or did?
Yeah. So this went to in between. You can actually see the in between charts laid in here and there, and we have sort of an in-house in between numbering system. So animators out there we do it based on the frame number rather than the drawing number, which is more common. And they filled out the in-betweens and filled out shadow for any frames that I didn't do the shading for, and then colored it. After it was colored, then went over. It was exported and handed to compositing, and Adam handled the compositing for all these shots. And I'm sure Adam will show you some cool stuff from this section. Let's see. I feel like I've rambled for a while already. Should I pass it off to you, Adam?
Yeah, I'm ready whenever you are.
Okay, cool. Is there anything that anyone wanted to ask or talk about before I pass the baton?
Oh, Sam, you have one question. I'm gonna go ahead and give it to you now. How long did both? It's from Mr. Spooky. How long did both the boards you've shown take, and did you time yourself?
So I was in like overdrive mode for 409, and this sequence right here, I think, was a 2-week sequence. But I was probably working weekends and stuff to do that. So 2 weeks isn't ideal for a sequence like this, certainly. And the previous sequence, sequence 1 from 401, I think I spent a very normal 3 weeks on it, and it was that was chill, and I wasn't like, you know, overdoing it or anything like that for that previous one.
Okay, cool. I think that's it.
All right, I'm passing the baton, Adam. Stop share. There we go.
All right, you got it. Here we go. Let's see. Sharing my screen. So, hi, I'm Adam Deats, and for these last 4 seasons, I've kind of moved around and did a lot of different things when we got started. And I've acted kind of as the original editor for the first couple seasons, and I definitely did editing throughout the entire 4 seasons. Oh, I need to show myself, apparently. 1 second. All right, I'm visible now. And I started out as an editor, but I was also kind of dual wielding as well, post-production, pipeline related stuff, specifically compositing and special effects design and work. One of the big things that I did in season 3, and it showed up a little bit in season 4 as well, is that is the design of the infinite corridor, which there are some of that is shown off in the book. As you can see here, we had some of our very, very early effects tests that I did based on Jose Vega's concept art. And I kind of moved through various different versions to get the final look, which is this shot here. When I started out, I decided that I was not going to do a high-end particle sim of any sort to kind of make this thing operate. I was going to do it all in After Effects with like lower key, less render intensive means, which is going to allow me to iterate very, very quickly. You can even see here that we had this sort of like walkway at the bottom of the infinite corridor originally that eventually we removed at request because it just felt too weird for the showrunner and the writer. So right here, I have actually Adobe After Effects open. And this is the original work file. And I want to go ahead and just show you what I did layer-wise. So I used Red Giant's or Trapcode's mirror to do this, which is like a kind of a polygon particle generation system. And the way that this was the way we made this work very cleanly and quickly is that we designed the original funnel, and I ran textures along that funnel and then applied filtering on top of that, and then duplicated that exact same funnel and then ran different textures along it to get the layered effect that we have here. And because the textures are being generated right out of After Effects, I was able to change those textures and the colors and the sort of fractal patterns to get a different kind of look as needed. And so that allowed me to kind of iterate very, very quickly. It also renders pretty efficiently as well. So if I go into this little texture pack here, it's actually a very, very, very simple fractal texture animation, just using After Effects' fractal noise. But that's the thing that's creating the colors running down the inside of the corridor. Originally, I went through for more just chromatic color schemes with a lot of different colors kind of meshed together. But eventually I moved towards the teal and the pink. I kind of get to sync up to the beast that was present in season 3, mostly for thematic reasons. You'll note that because this is all programmatic, I can apply a filter on the top here and kind of change the hue as well. And it actually changes in real time like so. And I can even run some displacements or warping, and it also changes it like so. We can get real crazy with it if we want. And things get real wild and wacky. And that was the whole reason for this setup, so that I could change this on the fly as needed, so that I can get the fastest results. Just to kind of go through some of the layers that we have here. I've got these, what I affectionately call anime streaks, which is a more cel-shaded looking streak here. And then we've got these more diffuse blue streaks, and then more wispy streaks like so. And then the sort of painterly chromatic spiral at the bottom. And we'll see, this is all 3-dimensional. We'll see if this holds up proper if I move the camera. I think it should. Yeah, so as you can see, I'm kind of tilting the angle there. And so it all works on the fly as needed, so we can duplicate it and pass it around as rapidly as needed. We also did this thing that no one really could ever see, but the corridor would flicker in and out of existence. You would actually start to see the space behind it. And so I had created several different kinds of nebulas, and you can kind of see them here. Here's like a nebula cloud. Again, not doing any sort of high-end particle sims for this, like no Houdini, because the render times on that stuff is pretty bad. I decided to stick with stuff that was all in After Effects. That's all very manageable and speedy. And then I also, to keep in line with sort of the psychedelic theming, I have this sort of nebula flicker effect that I did that kind of looks like what you would see inside of an eyeball if you shined a light through it and you'd see little veins coming through. Again, all of this is just thematically related to psychedelia and sort of cosmic horror stuff. So funny enough, I used the Infinite Corridor as a base for the Hector light tunnel thing, where Isaac uses the light tunnel to travel all the way up to Carmilla's throne room. For this shot here, which I actually have a before and after for. Let's see, 1 second. Ugh. Oh, so laggy, so laggy. Here we go. Yeah, right there. So for this shot here, amusingly, I actually did a 2D cel-shaded design for this. But when we got the animation back, it just didn't have quite the impact that I was looking for. So I went ahead and redesigned it as a digital effect. And I used the Infinite Corridor's geometry to run different textures down it to get that exact same effect again. This is actually a before and after video. And you can kind of see that I kind of built this particle sim in the back to show where the gems were planted. The tube comes through, scrapes everything, and here's some before and after layering for the special effects work. Here, I'm gonna go ahead and actually gonna frame by frame through this. So I actually kept it a pretty simple setup for this as well. We have this sort of dust plume effect in the back corner. We have some 3D debris from the wall. We've got the tube itself, more dust overlaying the top. We've got more debris that kind of follows along the tube as it's ripping through all the shelves. And then more dust layers here, more debris, and then the shelves to kind of overlap all of it. Foreground dust, foreground flares, and then a color grade. And I think to kind of top this all off, I want to show you guys the sort of creme de la creme of After Effects shots, I think. Let's see if this opens without breaking. Cross your fingers, everybody. Nope, broke. Ah, look at that.
Wow, immediately.
Yeah. Yeah, it does not like, there's certain plugins that it does not like us to open. If you have After Effects already open, a certain file, and then you open a new file, it just doesn't like it. So we have to start fresh typically.
Well, how many of these effects heavy shots do you think you have to make per episode?
It depends on the episode. It depends on the complexity of what's going on in it. So like in season 3, for example, season 3, episode 6 was very difficult as a sequence with Saint Germain, where he's in the infinite corridor and he's kind of seeing all the doorways opening up to different time periods and whatnot. And that episode was very, very difficult. Episode 9 of season 3 was really difficult. The stuff with Legion and the bodies and whatnot was horrendously difficult. And then Deaths versus Trevor was also really, really difficult for obvious reasons. I built the 3D rock system and such to make it as programmatic as something we would pass around very, very quickly. Yeah, so here we have one of the big finale shots. Oops. And I just want to kind of go through like all the layering we have in this thing to kind of just illustrate how crazy these things can get. Usually when I first get started with an After Effects file, I bring in whatever rough animation we have. And this rough animation is fairly tied down, so it looked pretty good out the gate. This is, you know, Sam's work plus the in-betweeners doing their stuff. And then from there, I go through each individual layer and I apply filtering to kind of get some of our specific look. So you see here, we've got this foreground rock layer, and we actually apply a lot of different gradients and textures and track those textures and gradients to each layer to get our sort of painterly look. And then I've got this cloud spiral down here, just kind of some foreground dust wisps. A variety of lens flares from the dagger. This is all rendering very slowly, so give me a break. And then we have our boy Trevor here doing his thing. And again, we have means of applying textures and gradients to the cell-based art to give a more illustrated look to everything. That's actually a flare that sits behind Trevor in the dagger, kind of backlights everything. We have another debris layer here that's behind Trevor. It's all the debris he's running on. More wisps that's behind the debris. I have an overlay lens blur that kind of pushed everything in the background back and blurred it out just a little bit because otherwise the shot would get very, very cluttered. So we needed a little bit of something to make sure that everything was a little bit further back atmosphere-wise. This is an overlay flare that's sitting right in the center of the explosion here. We've got a particle sim right there. Foreground clouds again. As you can see, these things get very, very dense if we wanted to do the big spectacular effect shots. And Death here as well. Death's, his post-production process is very difficult to handle. We had a chromatic aberration effect that was applied to his transparent sleeves, which were reduced in opacity with a little bit of chromatic aberration that had to be sent where his body was the center point. They blur and fray off near the edges of his cloth. On top of that, the rendering on his scythe and stuff was usually very specific, so a lot of gradients and texture work on him. more embers, another particle sim on top of the explosion here. And there's the explosion itself. The explosion itself was actually originally very, very choppy, so we used some time interpolation effects to kind of cover up the fact that it was choppy.
On that, it was supposed to be in between, but we didn't end up. It didn't come back in between, and we were like, ah, crap. And then Adam was like, oh wait, let me mess with it, and he came up with a cool effect for giving it kind of like you can't even tell it actually smoothly moves in the final.
Good old wide time. And here's a gigantic overlaying smoke layer that sits behind everything to kind of emphasize that explosion. Funny enough, if you'll notice, so this is actually our 3D background. We had a programmatic rocky field with a swirling cloud system that was very simply done, that we copied around to every project within this sequence and then changed the camera angle as needed. You'll notice there's no floor in this one. The shot does not have a floor, and because it didn't need it. The special effects were so dense that you can't tell that there is no floor. So I didn't bother to have the background guys paint a new background for it or anything. I just wanted them, save them a little bit of extra work. The shot was working as it was. It was also very clean and precise looking, so I decided against it. And then finally, I have all the color grading happening here. So this is without. This is a general contrast push with a lot of red introduced into the highlights and midtones. There's a little bit of more diffusion layer here. And then Twitch here is just like an old school goofy little plugin by Video Copilot that can flicker the screen. So we had a little bit of a flicker throughout the entire sequence. Yeah. So the end result is something that I'm very, very proud of. I think that sequence at the end is something that, for me, was one of my favorite things that we've ever done. Here's me just kind of going through all the frames, all the layering one by one for the final look right there. And that's it. That is all I got. Thank you guys for paying attention to me for a little bit. I really appreciate it. I'm going to go ahead and pass the mic over to, I think it's Katie Silva next. And she's got lots of cool stuff to say.
Hi. So I started doing character design when Sam, Sam was basically like, okay, I need to go do all of my boarding because he's such an incredibly good board artist. Can you guys see my screen? Hopefully. Yes. Okay, excellent. So I kind of took over the character aspect around season 3 and season 4. And character design in animation is you do anything that is moving needs a prop sheet or a model sheet. So anything that is not anything moving, but anything that's not painted and not 3D. So anything that is drawn needs an entire model sheet. That means if a character picks up a stick, we got to draw a stick. Characters usually get a front view, back view, some call outs in case, you can't really tell what's going on, in the hand. So it's okay, here's a hand call out because you can't tell from the pose. But yeah, so usually it starts out with concepts. Here's some concepts for Death when he became, gigantic Death form. Sam did the original concept for Death, so that was already approved. And so this was okay, how's he gonna get bigger? How's he gonna get more extra? And so you can see how rough these are. One really fun thing about working with Sam, Adam, Kevin is that I can just send them just scribbly drawings that what are these lines? No, it's fine, whatever. They get the idea. So I don't send them clean drawings anymore. But yeah, we do concepts, we get notes on them. And then we try and figure out how we can put that in a model sheet that can be animated, because of course you cannot animate this stuff on paper. You can't animate wispy, Photoshoppy Clip Studio brush effects on paper. So we need to figure out okay, how can we make this in a way that it's a shape then that our compositors like Adam can go in and make into, you know, the dusty, dirty effects and stuff. So there's some of that. I also do like outfit concepts. Sam designed Isaac, but I kind of got to do his season 4 look, which is really fun. I really like, I try and take advantage of our compositors as much as I can, because I know that they can do such cool stuff. So it's like, you guys can make silk, right? I believe in you. Some of these, he does kind of look like he's going out dancing. So I'm really glad that they went with the one that they did, which was this one. This one was, I think, pretty difficult to animate because there wasn't very much separated by line, which means that animators have to use a special, like a colored pencil on their paper. But I think he looks pretty cool. The idea behind this was that Isaac, in season 4, he's like starting to like, hey, maybe there is good in the world. Maybe I deserve more than I've been giving myself. So I just wanted him to start treating himself nicely. Yeah, so then we'll do, once we've gotten an approved concept, we will go in and do a model sheet, front view, back view, mouth close up, eye close up. All of this will be then swatched so that people can like take the colors from them. This was just one of my favorite model sheets to do because I think he's cute. This was tough though because he's based off of a game design by Ayami Kojima. And Ayami Kojima drew like all these beautiful pink crystals, but that was just going to be a little bit tough to animate. So you make this design decisions off of an existing design, like, okay, what's going to be too hard to animate? What will be easier? What suits the style of the show? And then, you know, you go in and you draw like the show style. These like little nose drop shadows are the show style, like these eyes are the show style. And then sometimes these sheets will have notes like, hey, can you guys blur this? Because in the final, this the black horn blurs into the face. So there's no line there so that the compositors can go in and make that nice gradient happen. Yeah, and then I also get to do expression sheets, which are really fun. Look at Varney. I love Varney. Oh, he's the only character. Yes. He's the only character in the show who has hair highlights because his hair is so greasy. I think the note on him, like when we submitted this design, was like, I can smell this man. And I was like, yes, excellent. Yeah, expression sheets are fun, but expression sheets are also difficult because you have to make sure to remember everything. So like, you have to make sure like, so Zamfir has like one chunky hair section on the left and then one in the middle and then like the small one. And so I have to try and make sure to get that on each of the angles so that it can rotate. And if it's inconsistent, then that will make our animators' lives harder. I'm sorry to our animators. And then sort of towards the end of the season, we get to do promotional materials. My team is also in charge of promotional materials. So here is one of Lenore, and this is the type of thing that you'll see on like Netflix thumbnails or Netflix banners or posters or whatever. We just kind of draw like all of these poses that sort of capture what the character is about. These are really fun because you get to do a lot more detail than you don't usually get to do in the model sheets. Like there's third shadow tones here that we don't really do in our model sheets much. We get to like throw, you know, gradients on ourselves. These are really fun to do. All right, I'm gonna try and rush through. So here's the, I just want to bring this up to brag about the team, because when we're doing promo art, sometimes we all work together. And this was one of those promo art instances where everyone was just throwing stuff back and forth, and it was really, really fun. So Sam gave us this sketch. Here's Hay. It's Hector, but he wrote Hay. You know, Isaac, Lenore, Marana, Dasan, and then this is Striga. And so we're like, okay, we're gonna take this composition, we're gonna run with it. So then I hop into a chat with my other designers, and we do something like this, right? So Suzanne Sharp took these two characters. Mari Arakaki did this cool Striga, and then we literally just stole a screen cap, I think that Sam drew, and we're like, okay, but we can't draw her like with hair dangly, so we gotta, you know, remove those in the final. And then I drew, who did I even draw? I think I just kind of went in and tried to like make sure that compositionally stuff was working and there weren't too many tangents. But we were all working together at this point and taking suggestions. And so people were like, oh, maybe we can raise Carmela's hand. And so I would take Carmela's hand to raise it. That was really fun. And then we all sort of went into our own corners and did the character clean art. So I was doing the Lenore art and I did the Marana art, and then Mari Arakaki did the Striga art, and then I got to plop that into the final and get the satisfaction of having it there without having drawn it. It was wonderful. And then Suzanne Sharp went and did this Hector and this Carmela, and Suzanne is known for drawing beautiful hands. Look at this hand. And then we also get to work with our background team, and Sean Randolph went in and helped us out with this background. It's just really fun working with a team like this, because like I just get the satisfaction of plugging in all of these things, and it's like, oh gosh, I need flowers. Suzanne, can you give me some flowers? And Suzanne's like, I got you flowers, and it's like, thanks, Suzanne. This is just really fun because we were all working together on this. So I just wanted to show that off. I think you can see this on the Netflix banner. I'm not sure. And so yeah, this is sure. Just, yeah. And this, so this is just more concepting. Like this is, from start to finish. So, you do some concepts. It's like, we want more scary. We want less whatever is going on over here. And then, helmet concepts. Here's like sort of the idea behind the glass that would protect Striga from the sun. And then here's like a full body concept showing like what helmets would look like on the character. And then once that's approved, it's model sheet time. And this is where you have to figure out the stuff you design from the front. You have to figure out how it works from the back. And then you're like, uh-oh, I didn't think about this. But it's fine. It worked out. You can change small things sometimes. Yeah, and then sort of towards the very end, if there's any time left over after designs have been sent out, I'll get to do things like draw images that might actually be on the screen. So I will like, Sam will pass me a shot and I'll do like maybe just one key drawing. I'm not an animator, so I can't do animation, but if there's just like a character sitting, I can draw that. So I drew the Lenore here, and then Jose Vega, one of our lead background artists, did the whole background. And then I believe Dan Rosner did all the compositing, so like all of the beautiful lighting and stuff. And then other stuff I've done, I get to do painting sometimes. Again, time allowing, because we have so many props and model sheets to do. But if there is time, then I get to jump in and do some background stuff too, because originally I did not study to be a character designer. I studied to be a painter. So all of this character design stuff, I'm just kind of learning as I go and doing my best. But I really like getting a chance to paint. So sometimes there's a painting that is needed in the show and I'll get to jump in and do that. I tried to make it so that like it looked like there was actual paint texture here. I thought I was being very clever.
You did an awesome job with it.
Thank you. Yeah, and then again, everything needs a model sheet. So sometimes I'm just drawing a bundle of sticks and a wheel. I'm bringing this one up because this was just really fun. This was when we were working on the last episode of season 4. Everyone else on the design team had kind of moved on to helping out with animation and cleaning up boards and things like that. And there just wasn't very many new designs that needed model sheets by then. So I was like, I'll stay behind. I'll draw the fun little props and stuff. And what was really fun about this was that almost all of the props were some form of wood. And so at first it's like, I drew a log, and it was just a log that someone was like pulling by ropes. And for some reason, like when I would post these model sheets, everyone would just lose it. They'd be like, yes, a log, yes, Katie, look at that log. And then I would post, a bundle of sticks, and people would be like, tiny logs, look at that round log. And then I would post a door, and it's like, oh my gosh, look at this flat log. So that was just, I don't know, that was just really fun. Everyone was like, woo, Katie, look at these like props that take an hour to do. Everyone was
best
like,
wheel I've ever seen.
Yes, everyone was working on like the stuff that Adam and Sam were doing, like these big hero animation shots, and I was like, a log. But it's just a fun environment. It's a really fun, supportive environment. And so okay, yeah, I have one more thing to go over. I'm gonna close out of some of these. But when I got to do the family portraits, like some of the portraits too. So I got to paint these things. And some things that people haven't really seen before was I did these while I was freelancing, and so I got to send in some thumbnails, different ideas and sketches. He's just like so tall in this one. It's kind of hilarious. He's like I don't know, but they went with this one because this one is more like, you know, it's very sweet and they're all together. And then I remember that Sam posted online that he was looking for character designers at the time while I was working on these. And so I thought I was being very sneaky, and I was like, oh, you're looking for character designers. Do you want some character designs? Do you want some designs, Sam? So I did some designs for like the outfits that were going to be in the portrait, just to make my bed, as it were. No, I also just thought it would be fun because I didn't know what they were going for. They just kind of wanted some outfits, so I thought it would be cool to see what we're going with. We went with this one on Dracula. We went with the slightly older baby Alucard, and we went with the this one on the left. But I think we changed it for the sake of the composition, the colors. Yeah, and then that is that painting. People ask why Dracula is not wearing the ring, and I will not tell you. All right, that's all I got. I'll pass that off to Steve now. Our wonderful background artist. So
thank you so much, Katie. Amazing art. Yes. Okay, hold on. There we go. Can everyone see?
Looks good on mine.
Awesome. Okay. Hi, I'm Steve Stark. I am the lead background artist for Castlevania. And I know this isn't an award ceremony, but whenever I get the chance, I have to rep my crew, the BG Boys. So that's Sean Randolph, Bo Lee, Sam Kaiser, and our 3D boys, Tucker Roche, Mark Adams, and my former leads, Jose Vega and Danny Araya. There's been so many hands on the BG side of this show. Like even Katie's done like a background or two, like just amazing stuff. And the show wouldn't look nearly as beautiful without them. But they're not here. I am. So I'm gonna talk about background stuff. Like when I first got on, I got on around midway through season 2. It took me a while to like get into the flow of like what the show was like. I didn't know about the show previously, and it like I was decent at painting, but not I've never worked in like a studio environment before, so it took me like a few months to like get into things. And then we got our first like post-production painting from our outsource team, and it just wasn't up to the standards that we needed for the show. So I redid it and made this spooky skull background. And that's like when I started realizing like, oh, this is like how the show works. I get it now. But many people ask me like, okay, how do you make the backgrounds on the show? And there's like a few ways to go about it. So the first and like, you know, easiest and most like straightforward method is sometimes you just like start sketching and painting stuff and like they put it in. I just like, you know, sketched out this painting for the Country Lane location from season 3 episode 1, and I showed it to Sam and he's like, yeah, put it in, like we're good. I'm like, damn, hell yeah, we should do that. We should do this for every background. But for the most part, every background usually starts out like this, which is a black and white layout. This allows us to sort of focus just on the composition and like, you know, getting references and historical and cultural items like accounted for and then mushed together into a background. And we don't have to worry about like color and lighting and stuff for now. And then we send this to our outsource team, so it gives them a bit more clarity on what they're actually looking at. And this one actually didn't make it into the show because it is a color model, which is specifically for a background specifically for the outsource team. It sort of gives them an idea of like the entire location or most of it. You obviously don't see behind the camera here, but it gives you a pretty clear picture of what the whole area looks like, and they could design other angles of the location based on that. And these are fun. When we like start out with line art and then we just like go to painting, it's just like we're like a printer. It's like we just like fill the lines in with color. That's all. And that's always fun. It's very tedious but very fun at the same time because you just turn your brain off and listen to like iTunes or something. And then sometimes we get really cool like color scripts, like this one from Danny Araya for episode 10 of season 3. And I'll see stuff like that and I'll be like, I call dibs on that. That's mine. I'm painting that background. And then I think I even just like skipped the line art section for this and took this upon myself and just like went right into it and painted this background of the judge's house on fire. And then Adam Deats in post-production took this and like he just made it so much cooler. Like compositors are like either very highly skilled or they're gods. Like there's no in between. They're one of those. And like he just made all this fire move and the smoke move, and I'm like, how? But somehow he did it. Okay, sometimes during post-production, we have to make a background very, very quickly with a very limited time window, and we don't have much to work with. Sometimes you're like, all right, I see we need an establishing shot for like a cool location. Hopefully there's a layout or something, and then you open up the master render and you get like this, where it's just like Carmilla's castle, like this background, but daytime. You're like, well, all right. I mean, I guess, but this is the this is the secret to the background pipeline. We use 3D models. Now this one is pretty rough. It is not a 3D model that you would see in the show necessarily, because it's too low poly. It's not detailed enough, and if we were to detail it up, it would be way too much. It would like melt a computer or something. So we avoid that, but it is perfect for painting over. So you find a cool shot with your camera in Blender, which is the program we use. Put a sun lamp in there, make it look somewhat pretty, take a screenshot, and then that saves like a lot of time. But like, it's not like you just like press the button and like you got a background. That definitely doesn't exist, or does it? But for this, I still had to like paint the rest of this over like a week or so, just to make everything like sort of meld good together. And 3D saves a lot of time, but sometimes you feel like you're fighting against the 3D because the render you get is so crisp and like perfect, like pristine, that you kind of like have to like fight against it to make it look very painterly and soft. But I mentioned earlier that this 3D model would not be great for like just taking screenshot of. But we do have models like that, like this one for Dracula's Castle. This is like a very, very high detailed 3D model. It has painted textures that like resemble something we would have in our painted backgrounds. So you could literally just like plop your camera down, take a screenshot, add some mist in there, run it through some like Photoshop filters, and you're kind of good to go. Like it's pretty much done at that point. But the main purpose of these is to help animators out, actually. Well, I mean, it helps both the animators and us out. So like, if you've ever watched like old anime movies like Akira or something, they could sort of cheat with 2D backgrounds to make it look like the camera's rotating a little bit, but there are limits to that. And we do that sometimes in our show, but it's very rare. But with the 3D model like this, that looks just like it is from our show, we could just like literally like animate a camera. Like this is gonna run slowly because it's a pretty high detailed model, but you could like kind of get an idea of like I think this is the scene where Alucard transforms into a wolf, runs up a wall, and then like bashes like Gurgoth in the face in
That's right.
episode 8, I believe, of season 4. Yeah. So like
Episode 9, I think.
oh, is it not? Oh yeah, because the trio's there. But like yeah, that like you could do so many cool things with backgrounds like this. You can't make a background a 3D model like this for every location, and it's especially hard for outdoor environments because of foliage. Like just having like a lawn, like grass, completely like destroys computers sometimes. So we have to be careful with that stuff, but we do like try to work around solutions and stuff for that. But yeah, that's how these models work. And then lastly, I just wanted to like share some like backgrounds I thought were cool that I did. So like my favorite thing to paint is like objects and like painting a bunch of objects. So for this one from episode 3 from Isaac's library, I got to paint a bookshelf. And I also like to throw in a bunch of Castlevania references, like any chance I get because they're fun. And they're always like wacky usually. And like I just like throwing that stuff in, give me more. Let's see. Yes. So this one was actually a mistake of a background. I painted this up, and then my lead, Jose Vega, was like, yeah, this was meant for nighttime. I'm like, oh, shit. But we did actually end up using this one in the show. And oddly enough, the one that I was supposed to paint, this version of it, didn't make it in the show, but this was used as a color model for episode 8 and 9 to give the outsource team an idea of like what the outside of the castle looks like at nighttime with all these camps and stuff around it. And also, I just like having two different versions of the same BG. That's always fun. Oh, I know what's next. All right. So this is a cat painting. This was requested by Adam's fiance because she wanted her cat in the show in some way, and we were like, what better way to do it than to reference a Renaissance era painting of a cat that looks hideous. I forget the name of the artist, and I meant to look that up today, but I forgot that this is referencing. But that's okay. So we referenced that artist. We made the cat look as hideous as possible, and then we add some Castlevania flair to it, like this little creepy plant monster from Symphony of the Night, this little bat, and the cube of Zoe from Symphony of the Night. And it might be my greatest work I've ever done, but I still have some years left in me, so we'll see.
Yeah, just to be clear, Alexander didn't like march into the studio and demand that the cat get paid, but she was jokingly bugging me about it in the background, and I was like, Steve, what do you think? If we put this in the background, do you think it's possible? And he was like, hell yes.
I remember you sounding so apprehensive about it. I'm like, yeah, I want to paint this. Are you kidding me?
Well,
This is
yeah,
great.
I just don't. Yeah, obviously, I was like, we don't have time for it. We don't have time for it. But you were so
I'll
jazzed
make
about
time.
it.
I would make time. I would work weekends for that. But lastly, just big old creepy sphinx in front of a blood moon. I mean, like, come on, that's just like fun. I love this is from episode 4 of season 4, and I just love painting wacky shit like this for our show, and just like give me more. Like I just want to continue working on shows where I get to paint something as campy as this.
This is from a reference to Portrait of Ruin, isn't it?
Yes, this is a reference to another Castlevania game. There's actually a bunch of backgrounds in sequence with this background that also tie back to those games. But yeah, I think I'm good here, unless anyone has questions or something.
I really like the
Thanks.
colors.
Yeah,
Thank
they're
you
so
so
pretty.
much. Thank
It's
you.
so pretty. By the way, Steve, there is a version of this shot in the show where I had like sand coming off the dunes and stuff in
Yeah.
the composite. And then when I put it on the shot where it was in the infinite corridor, you could see none of it. And so I was like, all right, I'll turn it off. I was like, oh man.
Yeah, I think
Besides,
I
it was
remember.
covering up the painting too much. I was like, it's better just do the painting as quickly as possible.
Yeah, of course. Also, I'll say that this was this sand dune desert thing was made in Blender, and then I painted over it. So
Oh really? God, it just looks like so painterly.
yeah, well, I mean, I painted over a lot of it, but like I think Colin or someone found a tutorial at the time for making dunes. I'm like, may as well learn something new. So yeah, that's all I have.
Nice.
Thank you.
Would you say that having a working knowledge of 3D is now sort of like prerequisite for this type of position? Certainly for this show, being able to.
100%.
Yeah.
Like even to give an example of like how much 3D is an important part of just Powerhouse in general. Even our boutique team, which like does non-serious work, they do commercials and stuff. They have started using 3D in their stuff, and it's like really helped them a ton. So like if I'm looking for people to hire or something, I'm definitely taking into account like their 3D skills. She doesn't say you have to be like an expert for sure. I'm definitely not. But you need to be able to work within a 3D pipeline at the very least.
Yeah. I mean, would you say too, Stark, that like the reality is that if you have a 3D model of a background, it allows you to iterate faster. It allows you to use it for paint overs later, quicker. If there's anything goes wrong in the background painting process, you have this reference that's always there. And sometimes like this, you can do really dynamic shots.
So the thing I should have mentioned earlier about this is that like for some of these like high detail models, I said they're for the animators, but they're also definitely for us, because sometimes we will literally have to do like 100 shots in one location for post-production, and usually I think most of the time they're always safe for locations that do have these high detailed models, because we could literally just plop a camera down, take a screenshot, and like pump out a background really quickly. I think the most I've ever done in a day with like stuff like this is like 40 or something.
Yeah, and it just saves so much time, like you can do it in a reasonable amount of time, do it for a lot of different shots as well. And we don't have to repaint it over and over again.
Yes, definitely the benefit. All right.
Cool.
I think I'm good. I'm gonna hand it back over to Chris. Thank you.
All right. Well, great. I as I'm looking through the book, and as we talked about it several times while we were writing the captions and so on, and even all the artwork we just saw here today, it occurs to me that there must be an incredible amount of sort of visual research that goes into every single one of these designs, especially what the stuff that Katie's doing and Stephen, and like Katie, in your case, you seem to have a real knack for the costuming. Is it like the options you show, even though that was those first images that were sort of your pitch for the designer job, you had a great array of detailed and specific designs. And you mentioned that you were studying painting at art school. Where do you account for that, like that great knowledge or interest in textiles and costuming? Did you always have that, or you just knew I have to research all this stuff for this position?
Oh, that's a good question. I originally was going to go to like fashion design school, and then I saw how much FITM charged for that, and I was like, what if I don't? Um, so I think I've always been sort of interested in that. Oh, you know what? I also cosplay. So I can like make a lot of that stuff myself. And I do leather craft. Like, it's not very impressive, but like I make little books like these and carve them and stuff like that. So I think I'm just interested in a lot of these things. And then when I was doing these original like sketches for the paintings, I didn't know what like character design really was other than listening to people talk about it on YouTube. So I watched a bunch of YouTube videos and they told me to do research and really think about intention. And so I bought books on the subject. And this was all like while I was doing freelance designs. Like it was kind of my test, I guess, but designing Lenore. And I was like, I'm going to order some books and 2-day shipping on character design. And I'm going to look all this stuff up and I'm going to figure it out as I go. Fake it till you make it. And that kind of worked out for me. But I guess it's just a combination of sort of all of that stuff. Knowing how to make clothes, I think, helps with design, maybe. But sometimes the designs that are most fun to animate, like, are maybe the most difficult to make. Like one of our designers, Lena, she designed Carmela's outfit in season 4, and the animator said that was like the most fun to animate because it was just a shape and they could do like all kinds of stuff with it. So sometimes you got to think about what the animators want to.
Right. Yeah. I mean, these designs are, I would call all the designs in the show on the more complicated end of the spectrum of simple to complex, for sure, and so specific. One of my favorite parts of the show are all the creatures and the creature design. I can share just a page out of the book once more, just for discussion purposes. Let's see here. So this is just one of the pages in the book. There's actually a good whole section of them here. A lot of these creatures are based off of game creatures, and then there's a lot that are just purely invented by the crew. And this is just so much fun to look at. And again, with the research and reference informed designs, you have to be looking at a really fun array of just pictures. Am I right? Or are you just inventing everything out of your imagination?
Yeah, we're definitely looking at stuff. I like to look at less concept art and more like creatures. But you know what the most fun thing is to just go on the Castlevania wiki. Shout out to whoever keeps that updated, and just be like, Sam, can we put this in the show?
Those champions at the Castlevania wiki.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, it really, there's a lot of different ways that creatures will end up being approached. And it's funny because sometimes it is, like you just said, thinking about a creature from the games that fit what is needed for something in the script will be like, oh, actually, this thing that's called Big Hands, looking at the golem on the right, I think it was called Big Hands or Rock Hands or something like that. I was like, wait a second, what if we use the golem from Lament of Innocence? That seems like it would function for this just fine. And so we're like, oh, okay, cool, let's do that. But then there's other times like the Cyclops appears in Castlevania 3, but it's just very different. And it was called out as a stone-eyed Cyclops. And I just kind of had this idea to make it something that looks kind of rocky, but it almost more like it's just covered in calluses. And that was one of the, let's see, I think it was the first page that you had up there. It was one of those, that was one of those things, those cases where it was just sketching. There was like no reference material, there's nothing, it was just shapes. And sometimes it's just a matter of having like an idea and going for shapes on it. And other times you have a ref sheet that is full of really horrible underwater creatures, and you end up with fisharoo.
She's beautiful and strong, and I will not take this fisharoo slander.
Is fisharoo on this page here? Yes.
Yeah, fisharoo is the one, yeah, that one right there.
Yeah, on the left here.
That one's based on some kind of like horrible mush fish or something like that, right? I can't remember.
I think so.
But yeah, one of the points of inspiration that we pull is we want Castlevania has a tradition of looking at sometimes obscure folklore and sometimes biblical tales and all that kind of stuff, and creating creatures based on those. And so we try to continue that tradition by looking at, in the case of some of Isaac's monsters, African folklore and that sort of thing for some of his creatures that he created, and then some of the demons from hell, looking at biblical descriptions of some of those fallen angels and demons and etc. And doing our own kind of like new spin on some of them, and that's kind of that's where a lot of the creature design comes about. It's kind of a lot of different directions.
You can see it sort of looks like familiar to like a hyena type head here, perhaps, or something like that. So I had another question before we maybe move into the broader Q&A. I was curious. I myself, I'm a teacher of animation at University of the Arts in Philadelphia, and I know the students are always thinking about what it'll be like. What do they need to do to become professionals? And so you may get variations on this question a lot, but I was curious what kind of student, or if you didn't have a formal art education, what kind of younger person were you that sort of allowed you to become who you were today? Was there certain methods you used, certain practice? What kind of like pivotal type habits did you have? Were you a good student? I don't know. I'm just curious about how you became the professionals that you were today. And this goes out to all of you. So I wonder if anyone might want to take that on.
I guess I can start, Sam, and then we can move on to you. A lot of it is luck, obviously. It's easy to stumble into certain industries if you're in the right place at the right time with a skill set. I actually changed careers really late in my life, but I went to school for a multimedia degree. So I was studying a lot of different stuff. I was studying animation, and character design, and then post-production, and a bunch of other stuff. And I was actually slated to kind of go look at art schools. And then I fell into a different line of work. And then after the guidebook industry decided to collapse, I came back to animation. Sam was trying to get me to come back to art in some capacity. And so eventually I applied at Powerhouse and just started at a very low position there, just doing a lot of general flash work. And I still had some of the skills I picked up from art school, right? Like I love After Effects, and I was just doing general After Effects video work for video game stuff online for fun for a little bit. And then I got into Powerhouse, and I was doing cleanup and background work here and there and effects animation. And I fell into compositing because, to speak frankly, 12 13 years ago, they didn't have a compositing pipeline. They did everything directly in Flash. And so me and another guy at the studio named Adam Conroe, we were both like, hold the heck on. Like, we gotta create an After Effects pipeline of some sort. We gotta have an actual compositing pipeline because we can improve these shows all drastically. I think Sam has some say in that as well. Helped us push that. So that was sort of the precursor. We started doing motion comic work in After Effects. That led into doing the 2D animation composites in After Effects as well. And then things went from there. And I still did 2D animation effects work here and there, and occasionally I pitch in with other stuff. And so I would say that, like, you know, before I got to Powerhouse, I was doing stuff on the side for fun because I was interested in it all the time. And so that doesn't mean that you have to work every single hour of the day. It just means that it's good to have interest in the new tech and the technology that's available, and or the arts that you're interested in, and doing it when you have a little free time here and there, just so that your headspace is in the right place.
Right, like people who potentially could hire you like to see that you are focused and dedicated to the art itself. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Yeah. Sam, were you had something to add there?
Yeah, I guess my story was I kind of went into me and Adam went to a local community college, ACC, for art and animation and all that kind of stuff. And it ended up being more of like more helpful for like learning the technology and learning programs and all that kind of stuff. But kind of like, you know, I dipped my toes into animation and illustration and stuff. But really, when the thing that caused me to really dive into animation is when I started to kind of do my own animations on the side and play around with my own things. Like I wouldn't call them personal projects. It was just like fucking around doing something that was fun. It could be anything, honestly. Like that one of the first pieces of animation I did that made me realize, oh dang, I think I want to do this, was a freaking Naruto fan animation. And that you know, that kind of like got me rolling in towards building more animation and all that. But before then, I was actually thinking, oh well, you know, the 2D animation industry is kind of struggling right now because this is what, like 15 years ago, and but the video game industry is doing well. So I was figuring I was probably going to end up in video games. So I had a lot of illustrations and paintings and stuff like that. And when I first started at Powerhouse, I was actually, they brought me on doing backgrounds and that sort of thing. But slowly, because I had an animation background as well, I was helping out with just educational Flash cartoons and that sort of thing. And slowly we started getting video game work and doing like cutscenes and stuff. And it was all like kind of Flash puppet animation type work, but it was kind of cool to like start working towards that. And then we were working up towards traditional animation where it was all kind of like hand drawn digitally. And I started doing more of that, but I really wanted to do like anime action style work. And so I kept practicing that in my off time. We weren't doing those kinds of projects at Powerhouse yet, but I just kept practicing it and kept working at it and making my own little side projects for funsies and drawing it and etc. And I got good enough at it that we started to be able to bring work in at Powerhouse doing that. That spawned like kind of a different direction and growth for the studio for that type of work. Like it made this extra branch. And that eventually led to Castlevania. So really, it was just like 10 years worth of like baby steps. As I grew, the studio grew with me as well, and we were just like we were kind of growing together that way. And so I guess the best advice I could give is you don't have to dive right into the big cool studios. You don't have to dive right into the to Disney or etc. It's I kind of wanted to stay in Austin. Still wanted to be near my family and my friends and everything. And we just through hard work and dedication and pursuing my own like what felt right for me, got to kind of help build into this thing with all the other amazing folks that I've been incredibly lucky to work with over the years. So,
yeah, I think I was just gonna say real quick is that like we've been very lucky that Powerhouse has kind of allowed us to grow in the studio and do things and experiment, which is a big thing. There's not a lot of places where you can do that. You gotta get locked into a certain place at some kinds of studios, but at Powerhouse, we've had a lot of room to kind of just go, hey, we think we can do this better. Let's work on that.
It was a very special kind of flexible growth working in a studio that kind of was doing a little bit of everything.
And yeah, and for context, again, I started the studio just doing educational flash work. It was like putting in the text for bullet points for questionnaires, for a school. So you're not going to just jump in and do the best thing ever. Sometimes you have to work your way up.
Or sometimes like you're someone who's way more talented than I was when I was first jumping in, like Katie.
Katie and Stark, those idiots. God.
Hits the ground running. So
yeah, well, basically what you just said was you kept doing what you like, and until the rest of it became part of the studio that you were in, essentially. Like you kept getting better and developing what you like to do first on the side, and then it just became part of the core of what
and convincing them that we can do that kind of work too.
Mm-hmm.
Like we can definitely do.
The path there isn't always going to be obvious is the best way I can put it. Just kind of like go along with it, but keep trying to do the things that you're interested in.
So Katie, you were still studying painting when you were freelancing, and like you said, you weren't setting out to become a character designer, but you went and bought those books, which I think is, of course, the smart thing to do. Books are great for that.
Books are good. Yeah, I was studying at a little atelier at the time, and I remember, I was studying at an atelier and I was doing conventions. So you go around to conventions and you sell your prints and things like that. And I remember getting the DM from, I was also doing commissions on Twitter. And I remember getting a DM from Sam, who saw a painting I did of this like cat boy commission. And he's like shirtless and he's like this, and and Sam was like, do you want to do some paintings for our show? And I was like, I was playing competitive Overwatch at the time. And I was checking my Twitter like between respawns, and I got that DM, and I was like, guys, I'm sorry, your Lucio's got to go. We lost that match. So I'm gonna stay in platinum forever. But so yeah, that was just, it really was just lucking out at that point. Like Sam and Adam and Stephanie and like they kind of laid the groundwork for all of this, because I didn't think that you grow up drawing anime and then you go to art school and you're like, okay, you don't have to not draw anime. My art school did not say don't draw anime, because they were like, okay, comic book artists and anime have really good anatomy and shapes. So, but it was also like, okay, where's the market for this? And so they kind of, people are creating the market. The people who grew up with anime are now sort of wanting to see it or wanting to create it. So I just didn't think this job would exist, and I fake it till you make it. I'm learning as I go, and I'm glad that I have the opportunity to. It really is just luck sometimes. But I will say, when I look through portfolios nowadays, the biggest thing I'm looking for is turnarounds, because like there's a lot of sketchy stuff, but as you saw, like when we're doing character design, it's not just the sketchy stuff, because we got to take it to clean and figure out what the heck we were doing when we were sketching. So that's one thing to look for, is maybe look at anime model sheets, because they just take like all of the information of a leg and just condense it into like the most beautiful line. I think that's worth studying.
Can I jump in real quick and mention that if you're trying to Google anime model sheets, they are called Settei, Settei.
There's a site called Settei Dreams, really great, has a lot of good model sheets.
Yeah, I was gonna say too that like we did happen to create the adult anime market here in the US, so that was definitely lucky as hell as well. But you know, even before that, there was stuff like Avatar: The Last Airbender that existed. So I think we were always going to start creeping that direction eventually. It just required certain precursors to exist.
And Steven, how about you? What kind of younger artist were you that led you to where you are?
So I got out of school around 2016 or something like that. Maybe no, it might have been 2015. Yeah, 2015. And then you know, I was definitely one of those kids in school that like, you know, got praised for a lot of stuff, and then I get out in the real world and like nothing. And that's life, baby. But I pretty much just freelance for like a year and a half or so, just doing really crappy like RPG illustrations for like $100 a pop. It was pretty brutal. And then one day, I was just sitting on my couch, and I got a text from my teacher Dave, former teacher Dave, and he's like, "Hey, apply to this place right now." I look at the phone, I'm like, Powerhouse Animation. Didn't I see them on ArtStation or something? I don't know. And I think in retrospect, when I saw them on ArtStation, I was like, who? And ignored that. And then I'm like, all right, I'll do it for you, Dave, because you're cool. And I applied, and then suddenly the next day they're like, hey, want to do an art test? I'm like, oh, shit. Oh, what do I do? And I took it, and then actually, no, I got like 20% through it before they sent another email saying, oh, actually, you don't have to take the art test. Never mind. And I think it's because a big factor in it was that two of the BG artists just left, so they needed someone really quickly. But luckily, I was there, and suddenly within a month, I was in Texas, all the way from Michigan. But in terms of like art stuff, I went to school to be like, you know, more traditional painterly. Not that I worked with traditional tools. I suck so much with traditional stuff. I don't know what an oil paint does. Are you kidding me? But like, I trained in that mindset of going like a traditional route with digital tools, and then I got to Powerhouse, and like I said earlier, I had never worked in a studio before, and it felt very different. I had to adjust very quickly. In fact, the first painting I did there, I think like I pretty much like failed, like pretty badly, and like Jose Vega eventually when he came on, he kind of redid it. But that was like a good like like slap in the face, like, hey, like you gotta learn more to stay around here. And I like actually another friend of mine at Powerhouse, Sean Randolph, he had a similar experience where he was very traditional painterly, and then he came in and they asked for a different mindset, a different way of painting from him. and we both had to adjust pretty quickly. But I'm glad we did, and now we're still here, so it's all working out.
Right, there's got to be a real flexibility and adaptability when coming aboard a production with established design and so on. So, well, I think that next on the agenda, I think, Adam, you might be looking at some questions coming in, and I can just step back here and you can take it from here.
Yeah, I only have a small list of questions I'm going to go ahead and go through. I don't know if we'll get to them, guys, but if you want to add more questions to Twitch chat, do so now, or else forever hold your peace. So Sam, this one was actually for you, but you already answered it, but I'm going to give an anecdote for it. But Mr. Spooky asked, how long did both of your boards you've shown take, and did you time yourself? You already answered the first part of that for the most part, but did you time yourself part? I will say, guys, I have watched Sam keep a phone with a timer on attached to the top of his Wacom tablet, and he times himself per panel. It's really, really quite something. I've never seen anything before like that. And he's pretty rigid about it. And he sticks with it, and it's actually pretty incredible to see in front of you. It's like really, really expert technical storyboarding work. The other question we have is also for Sam, but I kind of feel like you're not going to have much of an answer for it because we already know what the answer is. But from Blueberry Fist, do you guys shoot reference footage for any of these action sequences?
No.
Except for Spencer Wan. Spencer Wan has shot himself doing dodge rolls in a parking lot for a piece of animation.
There was one shot in season 1 that Spencer Wan filmed himself doing a dodge roll in the parking lot for when he was dodging the laser from the Cyclops. But for the most part, we do not use we don't film any reference material or anything like that. It's all kind of just like coming from our head, and we try to pose it out, the best way that we feel like it should. Just drawing it, really. So no, I mean, it would be impossible to film reference for a lot of the stuff that we do. The whips don't act this way, it turns out.
I was gonna say.
But yeah.
Cool. I'll go ahead. I think I'm gonna throw this at you, Sam. This is kind of half boarding and animation related. From Shelby the Square, what would you say is your favorite shot scene you've boarded for the show?
My favorite shots in season 4 or the show?
The show in general, no season listed. Like, what's your favorite sequence that you boarded that you loved?
Oh, that I did?
Yes.
Geez, that's really tough.
It's hard to pick one, right?
Yeah, it's really hard to pick one. I think my favorite shot that I did the animation for is probably just the as weird as it is, for whatever reason, my heart goes to that shot of Trevor waking up after Cypher catches him at the very end in episode 10 of season 4, and looks up and says, "Hello, love." And that one gets me. I just did the key drawings for it, and it wasn't even the most complicated thing or anything like that. It's just one that has stuck with me throughout all this time. And as far as like a sequence that I animated, it would be the very end, like an action sequence that I animated. It would be the end of the death fight. Is something that I'm pretty proud of how that came out, and put as much as I could in the time that I had into the storyboards for that sequence too. So that kind of answers both of those questions. But I'm just kind of tossing something off the cuff right now.
Yeah, no worries. So Katie, I think this is probably a good question for you. Lithaya asks, how does an entire team maintain the same style? And I think Stark on the background, and you can probably elaborate on that a little bit too.
We do our best, and
it's hard, right?
What I started doing was, because we're basing it off of Sam's style, so what I started doing was like Sam would post the boards and there would be such clean drawings on the boards, and then I would take screenshots of like all the clean drawings and put them on an enormous PureRef. PureRef is a reference program you can use, and that thing takes up 50% of your CPU. It's a nightmare, but it's like, okay, here's an eye that Sam has drawn from every single angle, so that helps. But sometimes you need to like break stuff down and be like, you know, we do 1, 2, 3 eyelashes, and then it separates, and then here's one more eyelash, and then here's one more eyelash, but it's like usually a line, not a eyelash. It's pretty specific. Like Alucard has like 1, 2, 3, and you just kind of keep that all in mind. But honestly, our artists are like so good at all of that there's just very rarely notes on any of that.
Yeah, it seems like too that every artist is different. Everybody has
everyone draws differently.
Style. Yeah, like
I draw more eyelashes than Sam. I'm sorry, Sam.
Right? Yeah. But like the reality is that we just ask people to get to a certain point that's close enough, and that's usually fine. Like slight style differences, we don't care that much about.
Yeah,
it's like pretty close, you know.
There's a bit of a range.
Usually it comes down to being filtered through the same, you know, being filtered through Katie means that if there is something that feels like too much of a deviation, Katie can be like, okay, a little bit like this does.
Oh, and Stephanie McRae helps.
Yeah, Steph is really good at that too.
But one of the things that was really helpful for me was like, you know, trying to direct and design characters for the first couple of seasons. I was dying, and Katie just came in, just knocking the style out of the park, just like fully absorbed it, had it right there, with like, you know, no effort really. And I was just like, oh, thank God you're so
there was some effort. I did triangulations of the eyelash angle of like I brought up my protractor, and no, I'm kidding, but it is tough. It's a tough style. But you know, sometimes the style kind of becomes your style, and then it's like, did I draw tear ducts before Castlevania on my personal art? I don't remember.
Right. Yeah, I certainly didn't really draw you know, the style of character and stuff until Castlevania. So I kind of had to crack open the Ayami Kojima books and really absorb. I mean, I was a fan and loved it beforehand, but it wasn't really what I was doing. But I didn't really have a set style personally. So you can kind of like learn it when you look at design as you know, creating a style for something that fits this vibe. You look at it less as you look at style as less, our character design style is less about your own style and more about creating a style. I guess.
Although I will say that you can still tell the difference between like people's art. Like Sam might say that he doesn't have a style, but when Sam posts a drawing of Alucard, it's like, that's a Sam Alucard. You can tell. Or like, that's a Steph Alucard, or that's a Lena Lenore.
It all goes back to the fact that every artist is just slightly different. It's just like when you used to watch old anime back in the day, and you could always tell there were certain episodes animated by certain studios versus others. It's hard to get rid of completely. It's just like sort of the nature of the game in a sense. But you just try to get to a certain level where the consistency is close enough. Yeah, Steve, do you have anything to add to that?
Yes. I'll say for backgrounds, as long as like the fundamentals are there, whatever stylistic changes we need to make are like very easy and doable. It's like if someone were to post a painting and the box is like in the wrong perspective, that's like when we're like
in trouble.
Yeah.
You got to draw your logs right.
Gotta draw them logs right. Like.
I guess when I have you, Steve, I have a question for you.
Sure.
Do you guys ever use Maya for your backgrounds, or is it only Blender?
Only Blender. We used to do Maya a little bit, but that was just 3D generalist, and that becomes a bit difficult to sort of work. Like at that point, I like become a liaison between the BG boys and the 3D boys. But with Blender, like all of us are like working in the same program, so it's just like way better for the pipeline.
Yeah, I know that Tucker used to use Maya for a little bit, but we moved away from it just because, again, like Blender is free. There's no
Blender
overhead.
is free.
Yeah,
like
it's gotten so good too.
Yeah.
Blender still has problems like with like in terms of like comparing to Maya like with its animation and stuff like that, but like
still possible though.
Yes, but even like disregarding that, like it really doesn't affect us. Like it's so similar to Maya for what we would use for both programs that like why not take the free one?
Yeah, and that's a big important point, guys, when it comes to learning when you have free time, which I know it's difficult to find free time, but if you do, the reality is that like there are free programs out there to use to learn, and I can't express to you how cool Blender is. It really is great. You want to learn how to do particle sims for nice effects work, you can do it right in Blender. 3D work for modeling in general, learning to do camera passes and stuff, it's all right there.
I'll say this, a little story. We used to use SketchUp for like the beginning of season 3.
I was going to ask about that because I've heard other studios using SketchUp as well.
So we had SketchUp Pro, and then we had a thing called V-Ray on top of that, which was for rendering our SketchUp scenes. But V-Ray was attached to a license, and we only had like a limited amount of license. So like if I wanted to render something, I'd have to like turn around in my seat to Bo or someone and be like, hey, you got to stop rendering. I need to use this. And it's just like, why? Like at some point I was just like looking at Blender like on my desktop and being like, what are we doing with our lives? I'm like arguing with my coworkers to render something when I could just be doing it for free.
Has the studio ever experimented with using game engines? I know that's being discussed a lot, is kind of bringing in they call it transmedia type things where a property can be developed and created
every so often it like crosses my mind.
Yeah, we're not ignoring Unity right now and some of the stuff that it's doing. So there is some level of exploration happening there. We're not ready to like implement anything yet, but it's happening.
I'd say for my 2 cents, the most impressive game engine that if we were to adopt one, I would go for is probably Unreal. For environments.
I said Unity. I meant Unreal. I'm an idiot. Yeah, I meant Unreal, like the new version of Unreal is amazing.
It's pretty insane.
There was an anime that used Unreal for
yes,
shots and doing backgrounds and all that kind of stuff. What was that again? I can't remember. Oh well, all right. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, I know which one you're talking about, and like the stuff they've made is pretty wild. I think they use like procedural textures and stuff to like make their textures look more Ghibli looking. And like, so it's not out of the question, but I don't think we don't feel like a strong need to go for it yet.
Yeah, right.
Theoretically, Blender assets could be incorporated into
for sure
an Unreal.
Absolutely.
Project. Yeah.
Which is kind of like the sort of draw too, and the fact that its render engine is so efficient. Yeah, so I guess we're getting close to the end, guys. So I'm going to ask 2 questions that are for all 4 of us. Sure. And the first one is, what is your favorite anime that you're watching right now? So I'll start. I am keeping up with Demon Slayer pretty closely. I really like it a lot. I just watched through the updated 2017 version of Legend of the Galactic Heroes, which is like a big political space drama, and it's dope. It's awesome. Highly recommend it if you like the original.
I'll say that I just got done watching 1,000 episodes of One Piece, so I guess that's my favorite show now, whether I want it to be or not. But I am actually going to start watching Legends of the Galactic Heroes too, because that is entirely my shit.
I'm watching Hiki Monogatari, which is just a really fun, unique style. I watched the Star Wars Visions stuff last night with some coworkers, and that was also some pretty cool stuff. But as far as like shows, serial shows that I watched Skate the Infinity with the production coordinator, Diana Gomez, and we watched it every week as it was coming out. And I have never been so like, we were watching it and just like, look, like, what is, and we we felt like we were at the Super Bowl sometimes. It was like, yeah, we were getting up off the couch. Like, it's great. Go watch
I have to
Skate
get
the
that eventually.
Yeah, I need to check that out. It
It's
looks
so
good.
good. It's so good. It's so campy and fun.
So the anime that I'm currently watching, well, marathoning again, is King of the Hill. I'm keeping up with One Piece and My Hero Academia, and I'm excited for when Demon Slayer comes back around, and I'm a little bit behind on this season of anime, though. I've been actually catching up on video games since work hasn't been so crazy. It's like impossible to play video games when work is crazy. Whereas with shows, I can put those on, kind of like have them on in little spurts while I'm working or like while I'm on break or something like that. But video games is like impossible. So while it's still a little slow, I'm catching up.
And Dash Fox, to answer your question, I love Vinland Saga. I'm actually a little bit behind on it, but I thought what I did see of it was really, really good. It's one of the best sort of like, it's not, it's hard to call it a historical drama because it's so loosey-goosey about its history, but I still love it regardless. That was great. The other question I wanted to ask, which is a little bit more dense, and it is for everybody, which is that what are some of your inspirations for your art in general and some of your earliest inspirations? I'll go ahead and start. I've talked about this a lot, but you know, Sam and I are both video game and anime fans. So we have been watching anime fan subs and importing video games since we were children. We were very lucky that our family was never very rich, but they were scraped together as whatever little they could every Christmas to kind of give us a big drop of cartoons and video games around then. So we've just sort of like drawn from that for ages. I love late 90s and early 2000s anime designs in general. So Record of Lodoss War, Cowboy Bebop, sticker lines, stuff like that, which you still see on occasion these days, are the things that I really liked. I also like, generally speaking, grounded, down to earth direction in cartoons as a whole. So that's why I've always kind of veered towards adult animation. But I'm a big American film fan as well. I say American film fan, but I like film in general. South Korea's been doing some wonderful stuff lately. Parasite was amazing. And so I never take my eye off that.
For me, traditional painting stuff, I love my NC Wyeth, my Mead Schaefer, shit like that. For more contemporary stuff, obviously Kazuo Oga, Chase Stone for my more personal painting stuff. He's an amazing digital painter. An anime I reference all the time at work is the Wolf Children, or whatever that movie is called.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
That those backgrounds are like on some kind of next level shit. It's insane.
So I grew up with the Ayami Kojima art book, and now that thing's worth quite a bit of money, so that's pretty cool. That's my nest egg. But one thing that's really cool is that I actually get to work with a lot of the artists I grew up really inspired by. Like one of the first anime con I went to, I was like 15, and I bought this Ezio print from Saren Stone, and it's hanging on my office. You can't see it, but it's hanging up there. And me and Saren Stone started work on Castlevania at the exact same day, and so we got to like, I was like, wow. And like Mari Arakaki, I was just like crazy inspired by that anatomy. And now Mari like also works with us, and it's just it's pretty cool just walking down the hall and seeing like a lot of artists that you're inspired by. But right now I'm also inspired by like model sheets. I don't know. I like looking at them. They're cool.
Yeah, you've been kind of obsessed with the Gundam Hathaway model sheets lately. It seems like
they're pretty good. They're pretty darn good. Yeah, we're big Naoyuki Onda stands in this household.
Mm-hmm.
I was just gonna say, Naoyuki Onda has definitely been an inspiration. When I first started designing on Castlevania, I was like, I hadn't really done a lot of like model sheets for an anime style thing, and so I cracked open the Berserk art book for the films that Naoyuki Onda did adapted the designs for, and that really helped me kind of like figure out what the heck I was doing when designing the show. And so obviously I was absorbing Ayami Kojima, and I've always been really familiar with the work since playing Symphony of the Night and the rest of the Castlevania games back in the day. But Naoyuki Onda and Nobuteru Yuki are a really important kind of touchstone when I was starting out trying to actually do anime character designs. And I was influenced a lot and really loved the work of like Nobuteru Yuki back in the Escaflowne days and the X-1999 movie and like Adam said, Lotus War. And that was really, art style wise, is something I've always been like really inspired by. But the reason I got into animation, I would say is it's got to be Norio Matsumoto and his work on Naruto. That's what really got me is I think episode 30 kind of was like, animation, wait a second. When Sasuke and Orochimaru have their fight, and then when working the way up to that fight between Naruto and Sasuke towards the end of the when they were younger. That's when I was like, okay, this is what I want to do, which is like polar opposites as far as like the design complexity and all that kind of stuff. And when I was getting into animation, I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to do anime style stuff. So like the simpler designs and stuff of things like Batman the animated series and whatnot that I really loved, and Batman Beyond and stuff, all that Bruce Timm work. I've always been a big DC animation fan. That's kind of where my head was leaning for a while, until like I was like, oh wait, maybe I can actually get this anime thing to stick, or my sensibilities can in that direction can actually work for making shows and stuff.
Yeah, somehow we managed it and created an industry for it. How did that happen? It makes no sense. It makes no sense.
Super weird.
I wanted to follow up. I forgot to mention this. In terms of anime style compositing, I'm referencing a lot of different stuff, but KyoAni's compositing department is incredible. I look at a lot of the stuff they've done over the years. And UFO Table is the tippy top of that work. Absolutely groundbreaking, amazing 2D animation compositing, almost too much compositing, to be honest, on their shows. It's amazing. And so I am always referencing what they're doing to try to get something that is a very dense, polished composite that can do a lot of things so that our artists don't have to suffer as much on the art end. Wow, I mean, we're about to hit 5 o'clock, so I kind of think that's it.
That was great, guys. Thank you very much. Okay,
Absolutely.
So on that note, I want to thank everyone on Twitch for joining us, and definitely, especially to all of you panelists, artists, and our moderator, Chris McDonnell. I learned a lot. That was some really amazing art, and it was really informative. So please be sure to check out Castlevania on Netflix. Tell your friends to watch it, and keep an eye out for the new series. You can join our Patreon or check out our YouTube channel for recording of this interview and for other great content. If you do not have the art book already, we do have signed book plates, books with signed book plates on our website. And yeah, there's a few left, so definitely get that. And with that, I just want to say, yeah, thank you guys again. And